Namaskar. Welcome to yet another Akshaya Patra presentation, the 2020 online gala, hosted by our amazing and extremely successful Texas chapters from Austin, Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio. I welcome every one of you and hope that this evening is going to be as spectacular, as thought-provoking, and informative about Akshaya Patra as we have always strived to bring to you. In Ayurveda, there is a saying, we get hungry every day and we eat to fulfill that hunger, and that is Prakriti. And occasionally, we overeat. We eat when we are not hungry, we eat things that are not right for us, or in the wrong time or the wrong amount. That is Vikriti. And then, knowing that after we eat, along with us, there is somebody else who is also hungry, we keep a little bit aside for them. That is Sanskriti. And that is what Akshaya Patra's mission is, to provide unlimited food for education.
Namami dhanvantarim adidevam surasurair vanditapadapatmam lokair jararuk भयमृत्युनाशम् दातारमीशं विविधौषधीनां तं व्योमवातावनिवारिवह्नि पञ्च प्रपञ्चात्मकदेहभाजम् सन्ताप सम्पात जराज्वरान्तकं नमामि धन्वन्तरिम् नवीननीलमुदकान्तिकान्तं शान्तं हरैर्द्वादशमाख्यमूर्तिं पूर्तिं शतानां सुमनोरथानां नमामि धन्वन्तरिम् नमामि धन्वन्तरिम् आदिदेवम् नमामि धन्वन्तरिम् आदिदेवम्
My name is Narayana Murthy, and I serve as Chapter Chair for Akshaya Patra Dallas Fort Worth, along with Ramji.
Hi, this is Ramji from Dallas Fort Worth.
Hello, I'm Ramesh Rajagopalan. I serve as the Chapter Chair for the Austin Chapter.
Hi, I'm Rupa Gear, and I serve as Chapter Chair in Houston.
As a father of a son and a daughter, I wish for all our children in India to be energetic and just study hard.
To have big dreams to fulfill, share their knowledge and wisdom when they grow up.
I want them to become doctors, lawyers, and engineers.
Actually, I just want them to think outside the box.
Dream big and chase those big dreams.
I have the dream of raising and fulfilling hopes for millions of children.
With unlimited food for education.
My family and I have been supporters of Akshaya Patra for over 10 years, and I strongly believe that solid education paves the way for a brighter future for these children. I sincerely hope you join me today wholeheartedly in supporting these efforts in making these children's dreams come true. Thank you and namaste.
Please donate generously. We need your support. It makes a big difference. So again, thanks to one and all, and especially to all my friends in Dallas, Fort Worth.
A couple of years ago, Ramesh and I were watching a documentary on Akshaya Patra on National Geographic TV. We were instantly inspired by the mission of Akshaya Patra.
Our goal for the Austin chapter is to bring the community together to promote awareness and to raise funds to help support this cause.
The name is Akshaya Patra.
I am Akshaya Patra.
I am Akshaya Patra.
I am Akshaya Patra.
I am Akshaya Patra.
Good evening, Murthy ji, and good morning to all of you in various parts of the world, and good afternoon to those who are in a different time zone. So, Murthy ji, this is absolutely an honor to have you here. You are an icon in the Indian firmament. You are very well known to most of our audience. I don't want to spend a lot of time introducing you, that would be redundant. But I do want to emphasize some parts of your background that are germane to the people in the audience here. You are not only very active in various forums in India, but you're also internationally active. You are, for example, in the board of the Rhodes Trust. You are on the board of trustees of Cornell. You are on the board of Ford Foundation. There are many organizations around the world that you are very active in.
I used to be. I have completed most of them now.
I'm glad, and I'm sure there are going to be new things that you will be participating in. That is a good thing too. So what you are going to say is going to be very relevant to wherever the audiences here are going to be, whether they are in India or in the US or in the UK or in the larger Indian diaspora that is going to be listening to you. With that in context, I want to begin with a more general question of today's situations. We are in stressful times. Many of our institutions are under a lot of stress. This year, 2020, has been called the annus horribilis. It is nothing short of catastrophic in many of the events, whether it is the pandemic, whether it is the economic downturn, whether it is the racial tensions, whether there is the intergovernmental squabbles, whether it is border tensions and trade wars. Nothing so far has gone well in 2020. All of our institutions, big and small, are under stress. Governments are under stress. This is an election year in the United States. Non-government organizations are under stress. Corporations are under stress. People with unemployment. In the middle of all of this, you have been a big proponent of the role of the individual. Individuals make a difference in any society. And you and your wife have been in the forefront of individual action, whether it is philanthropy, speaking out, acting on things, advising, consulting. I would like for you to tell us what you think in this time the role of the individual should be, and what are you expecting individuals to be doing in these days?
First of all, my sincere thanks to you, Shivaram, to Vandana ji, to Desh, and all the virtual attendees for giving me this opportunity. It is always a pleasure and a privilege to be interacting and learning from the vast diaspora of Indian intelligentsia found in the US. You are a set of philanthropic people who live by Churchill's words. You make a living by what you get, and you make a life by what you give. Yes, the memories of the year 1968 are still vivid for me. Loss of Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., and of course seeing the photograph of the My Lai massacre, depicted by a small, helpless Vietnamese child facing the gun of an American soldier, were indeed very sad for me as a student at IIT Kanpur. That night, we had a dinner with an American professor of ours from Berkeley on deputation to IIT Kanpur. And I still remember his words. He said that the only way that the world can ensure that such things do not happen again is if we resolve to do everything possible to make this a peaceful, harmonious, and fair world that reveres respect for other cultures, equality, justice, fairness, friendliness, restraint, and civility on the part of every citizen of this world, but particularly so on the part of the powerful people. For me, 2020 is indeed another such year. Therefore, I would say we have to, as individuals, make this a better world by remembering and acting according to the 3,000-year-old famous Sanskrit saying of the Upanishads, and that is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. What that means is the whole world is one family. What an extraordinary culture the Bharat of Upanishads era must have been. Coming to COVID-19, I believe that the scientists in countries like the US, the UK, and India have a huge opportunity to win the battle against COVID-19. Second, we have to assume that COVID-19 is here to stay for at least the next 12 to 24 months. We have to conduct our businesses taking all the precautions of social distancing and using personal protective equipment. At the same time, we cannot let the economy decline, since that will pose another big challenge, particularly for a country like India, which has already lost 140 million jobs. So I would sum up our individual responsibilities as: first, we should listen to the Sanskrit saying, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that I referred to earlier. Let us conduct ourselves according to this famous saying. Let us go about our work with full protection as if it's a normal period. Let us work on the vaccine and the cure with a sense of alacrity if we are in that particular business. And finally, we had to be a disciplined citizen doing what the experts say.
So I'll pick off from that point where you left, Murthyji. You talked about the educational institutions in the United States and the blessings many of us have had in going through all of those. There is often a saying that says, much is expected of people to whom much is given. This audience of yours, the Indian diaspora here, has a lot given to it. They are experts in their respective fields, very diverse as they are. Would you say we have some additional responsibilities on our shoulders? We are the leaders of our pillars of our society here. What do you expect? What are your admonitions to us in the United States, specifically, more than a general statement?
You know, I'm one of those rare Indians that believe in a small percentage of competent and value-based Indians going abroad and conducting themselves as model citizens of whatever society they have chosen to live in. So my request to you all is to remember that you represent a great heritage, and the best contribution you can make is to raise the image of India in every transaction of yours. So my plea to you is to become the best citizen of the US society in every dimension: education, research, corporate responsibility like yours, peaceful and harmonious coexistence, good work ethic, discipline, honesty, integrity, devotion to your adopted country, proactive participation in community betterment activities, philanthropy, joining the armed services and fighting for your adopted country's ideals, and working hard for making your democracy the best democracy. Do also remember that your mother country may have been poor when you left India, but she has given you excellent education. Now, remember that your education was subsidized by the taxes paid by hundreds of thousands of poor citizens, or hundreds of millions of poor citizens. Some of you even received scholarships from the government. I did. Just remember that in an Indian family, like yours or mine, the parents and the siblings make every sacrifice necessary to provide the most promising sibling the best education. Tradition has been that this child, this smart child, the smart sibling, supports the parents and the siblings in old age, takes care of the education of other siblings, and contributes to the marriage of the sisters. And finally, it adds value to the society. So therefore, my fervent plea to every one of you high performers is to remember this great Indian tradition and contribute whatever you can to support your mother country. Contribution to Akshaya Patra is one such possibility. This contribution, in my opinion, is one way of respecting the great Indian family tradition.
Murthy, now that you've brought up the subject of Akshaya Patra, I want to expand there a little further. Children have been an important cause for you, as it is should be for all of us. The Akshaya Patra mission of no child should have to go hungry to a school, that sort of tugs at everybody's heart. You and your wife have been fervent supporters of Akshaya Patra for a long time now, and you continue to do that very, very generously. The COVID-19 pandemic has put this under stress, where Akshaya Patra's delivery, Akshaya Patra's children, the needs are growing. On top of it, the Indian migrant crisis has become very important also. I want you to give us the context, as you see from where you are, of why Akshaya Patra now, and why should we be more involved in Akshaya Patra than ever before?
Well, you know, for the last 4 months, our economy has decelerated. As I told you, 140 million poor people, poor workers have lost their jobs. Their children obviously cannot even attend schools. And even when these workers come back, it is so difficult for them to take care of these children. As I pointed out, the new normal is accepting that COVID-19 situation is going to continue for probably 12 to 24 months. We have to simply accept this as given and overcome its debilitating factors. That requires us to work very hard. Perhaps we may have to do what the Germans did after the Second World War to rebuild their nation. Therefore, we have to work perhaps 60 hours a week for the next 3 to 5 years to re-accelerate our economy. COVID-19 has reduced the disposable income for most Indians. Therefore, it is extremely important in these days of diminished economy, in these days of lower incomes for the poor people, in these days of joblessness for a majority of Indians, we, the better paid Indians, we people of Indian origin in countries that are better to do than India in terms of per capita income, will have to remember to contribute whatever they can by remembering that there are millions of children who go hungry without food and sleep, who go to sleep without food. And I can tell you, as a parent, every one of us cannot accept our children going to bed without food. And that is something that is heart-wrenching. Therefore, I believe that people of Indian origin and well-wishers of Akshaya Patra on both sides of the Atlantic, your side and our side, have to realize that this is a great opportunity to do what Churchill said, that is, make a life by giving. So Akshaya Patra has to come to the front burner. And every night when you put your child to sleep, remember that there are millions of children who are going to bed hungry. And you want them to learn well, go to school, and be fed at least one strong meal a day. And that's what we can do. Yeah.
Some of the things that technology has done obviously has been wonderful for India. The cell phone, the communication, all of those has made India a much more of a egalitarian, as you call it, so that there is equality among people. But technology does cause some amount of harm in the country. In the US, it has created a higher level of inequality in people who are more educated than less educated. Jobs have disappeared. Do you anticipate in India things like that happening as technology comes in and causes, for example, we are going through this migrant crisis now. Will the uneducated be worse off because of this growth of technology?
Well, if I look at how the world has leveraged technology over the last 100 years, starting from the motor car onwards, what has happened is that those countries that embrace technology expanded their economies much faster than other countries. And they created bigger job opportunities for their people. In other words, the developed countries which embrace technology earlier than developing countries, recently, they are the ones that have the lowest level of unemployment. Give me one example where a country that has absorbed technology has actually lost jobs. Because the reality is simply this. What technology does is it enhances productivity, reduces cost, expands customer base, etc., etc. And therefore, it allows corporate leaders like you to think of how to make the life of the customer even better. And that requires innovation, that requires invention. That invention comes from the power of human mind. And it is the human excellence in execution, in hard work, that makes those inventions and innovations actually get implemented. So, therefore, I am very, very positive that as we keep embracing more and more technology, the human mind, which is the most elastic of the instruments in the world, will start thinking newer and newer applications. And those newer and newer applications will require more and more human power. And I believe that we do not have to worry as long as we have institutions like you have, institutions of higher learning like you have in your country. Stanford's, MIT's, Harvard's, Carnegie Mellon's, etc., etc. So therefore, as long as the institutes of higher learning and research are alive and kicking, I do believe that there will be a greater and greater uh, opportunity for people to be employed in areas where we have not thought of today. It's like when ATM came, everybody thought that banks would shrink. Banks didn't shrink, banks expanded. So I think technology is a great liberalizer, is a great leveler, and it creates extraordinary opportunities.
So, Murthy, I don't want to dominate the conversation with you. There's a lot of people online who want to send questions to you and ask you. Before we let everybody join in on the conversation, I want to come back to the question of Akshaya Patra. Both your wife and you have been very, very, very generous with your time and wealth with respect to Akshaya Patra. I would love for you to say in your own feelings and an expression what it should be that this audience should be thinking in terms of when we think of Akshaya Patra.
Well, you put it very nicely when you say the motto of Akshaya Patra is that no child should skip school because of hunger. I think that's an extraordinary motto. My former colleague, former CFO, Mr. Mohandas Pai, I think he was the one who first articulated it. A very innovative person. He was the first person to tell Swamiji Sri Madhu Pandit Dasa how his munificence can actually be used for social good. And that's how Akshaya Patra started in 5 schools around the temple in Bangalore. And then I came in 2002. Both Sudha and I, we have participated in our own way. What I would say, as I pointed out before, is that Indians, wherever they are, whether they're in the US, UK, and India, it doesn't matter. We have to follow a very important principle, in addition to the Indian tradition that I spoke about earlier. When I was a child, we were 11 mouths to feed at home. We were 8 siblings, my grandmother and my parents. So we were all on the salary of a high school teacher. Please remember that. In other words, we were lower middle class Indians. But compassion was alive and kicking in the heart of my parents. Every dinner, that is 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, we used to have a poorer child or a child from a poorer family join us for dinner and eat with us like the 12th member. It is called Varanna. Varanna, that means once a week, one meal, a child from a poorer family would come and eat with us. This is, centuries old practice in India. And my mother used to serve the child. Some days it should, some meal it should be boys, some meal it would be girls, etc. One child. My mother would serve the child exactly like she served any one of them. And we shared. After all, as you people know very well, sharing is caring. So therefore, my suggestion to every one of you who have distinguished yourselves as extraordinary citizens of a great country, to remember that whatever small contribution you provide will in fact bring smile to the face of a child which otherwise would have slept hungry, which otherwise would have skipped attending the school. So therefore remember, I want everybody to remember that giving doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be millions of dollars. Yes, we need that too. But whatever little can be given is going to bring smile to the face of children in tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of schools, to millions of children all over India. And there is no greater joy or there's no greater success than bringing the smile onto the face of another person. I was once asked at Davos in 1998 or something, defining success. I think it was Rick Wagoner, who was then the CEO of General Motors. So Rick asked me, I gave a talk and he asked me, what is your definition of success? I said, to be success is bringing smile onto the face of another person. I want everybody who attends this virtual meeting, I want every person of Indian origin in the US, I want every well-wisher of Akshaya Patra to remember that you can be absolutely successful by bringing the smile on the face of a child. So therefore, here is that great opportunity for you to be successful day after day after day, and that doesn't cost you much. So therefore, my request to every one of you is that be more and more and more successful.
Murthy, you surely brought a smile to my face. I'm sure everyone listening to you has that smile in just listening to you. It is an honor, sir, to be with you today. This was a profound, thought-provoking conversation. I would love for the audience to participate with us, and we'll now open it up to questions. Murthy, how, in your opinion, one can balance personal ambitions versus societal contributions and responsibilities? How do you balance these when you are trying to advance in our careers, but at the same time, we know we need to contribute back to society? How do we balance this? How did you do it, and how will you advise us to do it?
You know, a nation is as good as its per capita GDP. The US has somewhere around $52,000 as per capita GDP, probably around 60,000 now. India is about $2,000. So therefore, the ambition of every nation is to enhance per capita GDP, enhance GDP, because if you have a higher per capita GDP, you have better prosperity. If you have better prosperity, you can take care of your children well, their health, their education, their nutrition, etc., etc. So I personally feel that we have to first put the interests of the nation ahead of our personal interests, because at Infosys we learned a very important lesson, and that is, if you put the interest of the community first, you will always become better. Therefore, I would suggest that all the wonderful youngsters who are assembled there must look at how they can make the US even a better country, and automatically that will translate to betterment for them. And in doing so, we will have to strike a work-life balance, as it is fashionable today to talk about. But my view is that every nation has to spend a part of its life in ensuring that the problems of the nation are taken care of. For example, after Second World War, Germans worked very hard. Now, after COVID, India has to work very hard. US has to work very hard because the economy has slowed down, and therefore we have to make sure that we work very hard. So my request to all the youngsters is to balance the national interest with their personal interest, and spend whatever little time they have with their family as a high quality time. I mean, when I used to work in the early days of Infosys, I had very little time to spend with my family, with my children. Akshata and Rohan, my daughter and son, were hardly, 2 to 5 years in age. But what I did was that whatever little time that I could spend with them, I devoted it completely to them. We used to have lots of fun. We used to laugh a lot. We used to play a lot. We used to go to restaurants, etc., etc. So I would say that first put the interest of the nation, and then put your own family interest. But while doing so, make sure that you spend the time with the family, however short it is, with with very high quality.
One of the questions somebody asked was, if you had not been in tech, where would you have been? What would you have done?
I am the son of a teacher. In my family, there are lots of people who have distinguished themselves with their PhDs. So education is a big deal. Therefore, I would have been a teacher if I had not entered computer science. In fact, When I was doing my graduate studies at IIT Kanpur, I had taken control systems as my subject. In the first semester, I did courses on modern control theory, optimal controls, calculus of variation. As you know, control theory is nothing but mathematics. So I had done all of that. And one day, one Sunday, in my hostel, we had invited a professor from Princeton who was on sabbatical at IIT Kanpur. And he gave a brilliant breakfast table talk on how computers are going to influence our lives. And I asked him to suggest some papers. He suggested 6 papers. After breakfast, I went to the central library, read them, and Monday morning, I went to my guide, Dr. Sharma, and told him that I would be changing over to computer science and leaving control systems. He was an extraordinary person. He's not living now, but a very kind man. He only said, "Have you thought about it very carefully?" I said, "Yes, I have thought about it." And that's how I shifted from control systems to computer science. So therefore, I probably would have been a teacher.
So let's go to from the personal to the grand, the big vision. What is your dream for India? What do you think? Where can we be? What are you? What is your biggest dream for India?
I want India to be a place where people of different religions, different castes, different social classes, different education levels, from the urban and the rural areas, live together in peace, harmony, and hope. I want India to be a nation where the poorest child in the remotest corner of India has decent access to education, healthcare, nutrition, shelter, and of course, for a better future tomorrow. If we can achieve these two, I believe that India would be an extraordinary place in the world. It will be unique.
So we have another question coming from the audience, Murthy. There are enough resources to feed, clothe, and provide medicine to the entire humanity. The world can afford it. It's the distribution problem that we have which causes the poverty and suffering. It's the will, as they say. How do we make sure everybody gets it? What is your thoughts on how do we get these abundant resources we already have to the people? And this is a question from Kalyan Subramanian.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think it's a great question. I have always believed that peace, harmony, betterment, and happiness and prosperity in a society will only be possible if the rich, the powerful, and the elite demonstrate self-restraint in greed, in jealousy, in hatred, in misunderstanding, in their intolerance, etc., etc. In other words, once the leadership of various nations have people who demonstrate that self-restraint in exhibiting these bad qualities, I believe that we will find a solution to all our problems. But the biggest problem we have is our leaders tend to go under the nationalistic jingoism. And in order to appeal to the masses, they somehow engender xenophobia, hatred, intolerance of other religions, other castes, other classes of society, and thereby the elite who are the highly educated ones, of whom there are so many in the audience, will be prevented from using their smartness to find solutions to solve the problem of poverty and suffering. So therefore, if every society were to elect leaders who have these good qualities, who shun those bad qualities, then I believe that we will live in a world of which all of us can be proud. Of course, I forgot to add sustainability. Sustainability is a very, very important part of that leadership.
So we may have time for maybe one, if not two questions. So let me go on to the next question. The question about values. As you continued to grow in your career, how did you keep your values alive? And this is from Amrita Raman.
Yeah, well, thank you for this good question, tough question. Well, what is value system? Value system is the protocol for behavior in a community that leads to enhancing the trust, confidence, and hope of every member of the community in every other member. That is the protocol for behavior. By the behavior of each one of us in our community, every other member has higher confidence, higher trust, and higher hope in each one of us. Now, when you want to practice that value system, you will have to obviously put the interests of the individual subordinate to the interests of the society. I have found, at least in the corporate world, Shiv, you know it very well, any corporation where individuals put their own personal interests ahead of the interests of the corporation will sooner or later disappear like dew on a sunny morning. So therefore, what is important for all of us from our own selfish point of view is to subscribe to values that will engender higher and higher trust, confidence, and hope in each other. And then all of us will become better. And therefore, every one of us will become better. And therefore, this will be a better country. India will be a better country. US will be a better country. For that, you have to be willing to pay a certain cost. What is, if you want to practice value, what it means is, in a given situation, you are willing to forego something for your belief, for your conviction. And, for example, let's say that I'm alone, nobody is watching me. And if I were to take bribe from somebody, nobody will watch me, but I will become better. But I know that the society will
lose because the amount of money to be dedicated for a certain project is less now because I have taken part of that money. Therefore, whatever the society wants to do will be a lower quality project. So therefore, I would say that the ability to forego personal interest, the ability to pay a certain cost for our conviction is practicing our value system. And eventually, we will all be much better off. You know, at Infosys itself, in the earlier years, none of us had a car. All of us were in rented places for at least 20 years. And everybody made huge sacrifices. Sometimes it was frustrating. But today, everybody says, oh, that was fantastic, Mr. Murthy. I don't know how you thought about it. So therefore, I would say we must all accept deferred gratification that comes from the betterment of the community, and that will trickle down to individuals.
Murthyji, thank you. And I'm going to ask the last question. And before I ask the last question, I do want to share the good news as we go along. This gala was hosted by the 3 cities out of Texas, Dallas, Austin, and Houston.
Yeah.
And we had set ourselves a target of raising $750,000 just for tonight for Akshaya Patra. We are now running at about $920,000 and rising. With you giving such wisdom to us, with the inspiration you are providing, I'm sure by the time we are done, we'll be getting close to $1 million. This is just amazing to listen to you and get the years of wisdom from you to listen to.
You know, I am a great admirer of non-resident Indians. I've been to probably 60 to 80 countries. And wherever I have been, it doesn't matter what part of the world it is, New Zealand, Australia, Malaysia, Finland, US, it doesn't matter. I have not found a single NRI, who does not have affection for India, who is not willing to do whatever little he or she can do to see India as a better country. And what I am very proud of, every one of you, is the fact that you have conducted yourselves as model citizens of your society, and you have raised the image of India in the eyes of your society. And that, I believe, is an important contribution, an extremely important contribution. And therefore, we in India have to be very, very grateful to the non-resident Indians. Continue the good work. Don't ever do anything that will even remotely bring down the image of India. Continue to have affection for India like you have demonstrated so far. And we on this side will be cheering your success. That's what I want to say. Yeah.
So the last question to you comes from a 10-year-old girl who's asking your favorite question. What drove you to found Infosys?
Well, you know, that's a long story. I was a strong leftist when I was a student. Those were the days of Nehru. And I was working in France, in Paris, and I observed the society. I traveled a lot in Western Europe, and I realized that the only way poverty can be removed in a society is not through saying Garibi Hatao, etc., is through creating jobs with good income. And jobs with good income will result in good disposable income, and good disposable incomes will create opportunity for various sectors of the economy to flourish, and therefore it will create more and more jobs. Second, this creation of jobs can be done only by entrepreneurs who translate the power of their idea into jobs and wealth. Third, it is the responsibility of the government not to create jobs, but to create an environment where there is a legal and ethical incentive for these wonderful entrepreneurs to create more and more jobs. So I was hitchhiking. I decided to hitchhike from Paris to Mysore. I was on the road for a year, and I spent about $450. And I passed through a place called Nish. Nish is a border town between what was then Yugoslavia, now Serbia, and Bulgaria. And it was a Saturday night, about 9:30 p.m. A kind driver dropped me at Nish railway station. I was to pick up a train and go to Sofia, because the name of my project was called Sofia, System Ordinator på Tretmade Fret International Area. Basically, it means an operating system for handling air cargo. Uh, I went into the restaurant. They wanted the Yugoslavian dinar. I didn't have it. I had Italian money, so I had to sleep hungry. Next morning, I went into the town, to a small town. You know, in a communist country, why will banks be open on a Sunday? And those days, there were no ATMs, there were no credit cards, nothing. And then I was very hungry, so I was just lying down and conserving my energy. At about 8:30, I got onto the train. There was a boy and a girl sitting opposite me. I tried to strike conversation with them. First, I spoke to them in English. They didn't know English. Then I spoke to them in Russian. Those days, I used to know Russian. They obviously hated Russian, so they didn't even bother to reply. And then I tried my French, and the girl understood French. We were talking, and she was explaining all the problems in Bulgaria. And the boy got probably upset with us because the girl was talking to me and not to him. So he brought the gendarme, the police, and the police took the girl away, and they ransacked my bag, my backpack and sleeping bag, and they dragged me on the platform, and they locked me up in a 8 foot by 8 foot room. It was a cold floor. There was an apology for a toilet in the corner, and I was kept there for about 5 days without water or food. And on the fifth night, around 1 a.m., they opened the door, they dragged me out of the room, and they put me in the guard's compartment of a departing departing freight train. And the guards told something which I remember even today. They said, "You are from a friendly country called India. That's why we are letting you go." I was hungry, I was angry, and that's when I was converted from a confused leftist to a determined, compassionate capitalist. The journey was long, 21 hours to Istanbul, and that's when I thought a lot and decided to go back to my country and try and experiment in entrepreneurship. That's how, my started my first attempt. It didn't succeed, Softronics, and it was the second attempt, Infosys, that grew.
From humble beginnings, I really honor and respect your sharing this with us. That
As I said, Vandana, I'm a great admirer of NRIs, and in particular NRIs from the US. They are second to none. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I hope we will have you back again on our events. It's now very easy for you to travel and meet everybody. So I look forward to having you join us one more time.
thank you very much. Thanks, Vandanaji. Thanks, Shivaram.
Thank you.
Wonderful. You've been so kind. Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you to everybody. And I'm going to introduce you to our performer and vocalist. Please welcome Bombay Jayashree.
जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो परमेश परात्पर पूतपिता जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो परमेश परात्पर पूतपिता प्रणतं पतितं हत बुद्धिबलं प्रणतं पतितं हत बुद्धिबलं जनतारणतारयतापितकं जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो परमेश परात्पर पूतपिता जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो गुणहीन सुधीन मलिनमतिं गुणहीन सुधीन मलिनमतिं त्वयि पातरि दातरि चापरतिं गुणहीन सुधीन मलिनमतिं त्वयि पातरि दातरि चापरतिं तमसा रजसा कृतवृत्तिमेमां जनतारणतारयतापितकं त्वमसा रजसा कृतवृत्तिमेवं जनतारणतारयतापितकं भवेश विभो जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो मम जीवनमीन मिमं पतितं मम जीवनमीन मिमं पतितं मरुघोरभुवि हसुविहमहो मरुघोरभुवि हसुविहमहो करुणाब्धि चलार्मि जलानयनं करुणाब्धि चलार्मि जलानयनं जनतारणतारयतापितकं जनतारणतारयतापितकं जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो परमेश परात् पर भूतपिता प्रणतं पतितं हतबुद्धिबलं प्रणतं पतितं हतबुद्धिबलं जनतारणतारयतापितकं जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो जगदीश सुधीश भवेश विभो